All right, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here, and today we're going to be briefly talking about one of my favorite things, if not the favorite thing that I've seen this year in 2021, and that's Mike Flanagan's Midnight Mass. Now, I've seen a few things this year that make the top of my list, going all the way back to Bob Odenkirk's real incredible performance in movie Nobody, to the more recent The Harder They Fall. I really liked, but I just finally finished Midnight Mass. It came out September 24th of this year, and it's the new limited series from Mike Flanagan. And if you know anything about my channel and the past of my channel and things that I've talked about in the past, way back, not seems like a really long time ago, but it wasn't. Back when The Haunting of Hill House came out on Netflix, that was my favorite thing of that year. And it seems like every time Mike Flanagan does something, I just really like it. I have always been really impressed with all of his work. Whether you're talking about Oculus, or the Ouija movie, or the Annabelle movie, or Doctor Sleep, or The Haunting of Bly Manor. I've liked everything that this guy has put out. And I'm not the biggest, like, when I think about what I'm drawn to as far as movies and TV, it's not really horror movies that I'm really drawn to. It really isn't. I'm interested in character and story, and so if you give me good character and story, I don't really care what genre your film ends up being in. But for the most part, most horror movies just don't do it for me. They're either too silly or too schlocky, or they're just out for gore. You don't care about the characters, you don't care about the story. It's fine if you like that. And it has its place for me as well, and it can be funny at times, or horrific at times, or you just want to watch. I watch a lot of Mystery Science Theater, so I've seen a lot of bad horror movies. But Mike Flanagan, and I'm again repeating myself from other videos, but he makes you care about the people in the films that he makes to varying degrees. But also he's been doing a lot of other people's stuff and adapting things that have already been done, like The Haunting of Hill House or Bly Manor or Doctor Sleep. These are all things that are IPs, Stephen King, or old literature, or based off of old movies that were based off of old literature. He's been doing a lot of that, and he's been very successful at it, and he's been really making good quality stuff for years now. And he's doing it in a genre that I don't normally care for, but when this guy makes something, I know it's going to be good, and I flock to it. And this is the weird part for me, because usually I'm on top of this. And I actually started watching this back when it came out. I got a couple of episodes in, and I don't know what happened. It wasn't because I wasn't interested. Just my life took a turn somewhere else, and I was working on other things and watching other things and doing other things. Red Letter Media just put out their discussion about it, spoiler free, which I'm doing no spoilers really here. We're gonna talk about some spoilers late for those of you who have seen this, but the majority of this is just like theirs, because I watched their video and I realized, holy crap, I had forgotten to finish this. So over the course of 24 hours, I watched the entirety of Midnight Mass, and I gotta tell you, as impressed as I have been with this guy's work, starting with Hill House for me, and then I had to go back and watch Oculus and Annabelle and Ouija. Haunting of Hill House, man, just floored me. I think Bly Manor is all right, but it's no Hill House. But and Doctor Sleep, I really liked, but I liked what he did more than I actually liked the actual story of Doctor Sleep. But Midnight Mass is something completely different, completely original from his. He's the one who wrote this. He's the one directing this. This is his baby. This is his pet project. And while it has influences of many different, things, and you can definitely see a Stephen King influence in this. And I don't want to plagiarize what they said over on RLM, but this is like one of the best Stephen King adaptations that's not based on something by Stephen King. And the acting, again, in this show, from the top down, very rarely do you get to say that everyone was truly fantastic from the biggest role to the smallest role in this. Everybody is so freaking good. The writing in this is some of the best writing I have heard in anything. It's up there in the upper echelons of what I consider great writing for television or movies. His scripts for all 7 episodes of this are all amazing. Now again, to kind of go off of what some people have complained about, what they talked about over at RLM, was the monologues that this movie is filled with. That the characters all have long talks with each other. And that it's not very realistic. That people don't talk like this. There's only a few people that I know that do talk like the way that they talk in this show. And I kind of feel like I talk like this. Like I feel like now I realize I must be Mr. Monologuer everywhere I go, because I will talk and I will lay some stuff out for you. I'll lay some honesty out and I will monologue the hell out of things. But I feel like as theatrical and as rich and long these scenes are in this show, it is so integral to what's going on. And that if people were... The dialogue that happens in this is dialogue that I attribute to, if people really sat down and had honest conversations with each other could be just about anything. This is what those conversations would sound like. True, pure, honest moments, people having them with each other, is what this show is filled with. Uncomfortable conversations, brutally honest conversations, simple conversations that just deal a whole lot of character. This is a bit of a slow burn. This is not a movie or show that is concerned with getting you to the scares, to getting you to the horror. The horror is it's honestly the least interesting thing about the show, is the scary parts. Because the real horror, again, it's cliche, but the real horror is other people and how we deal with things. So if you don't know what this is the story of this small island town, this fisherman, like a fishing town island, that's been on the downward trend for a while. The people who wanted to get out of this place have gone. The only people that are left basically are people that have kind of run to this place, kind of hiding from the rest of the world in a way, or the hardcore, staunch people that will never give up this lifestyle. And there's a few different main plots that we're following around. One is this priest, played by so freaking well by Hamish Linklater, who has been fantastic in other things like The Newsroom and on Legion. Hamish Linklater gives a definitely award-winning performance as the priest, Father Paul Hill. I can't say enough good things about his performance in this. He comes to this town to replace their former Monsignor. And he comes with a very air of mystery about the surrounding, why he's like, what happened to the old Monsignor who has just kind of left to go on walkabout. Throughout the show, we slowly find out what's happening. I don't want to tell you anything more than that, but that the priest has promised to bring change and miracles to the people of this island. We also have Zach Gilford, who plays Riley Finn, a man who left the island, was not satisfied with island life, wanted to make it out in the real world because this place really is insulated. Goes and gets all of his dreams come true, but then tragedy strikes because he gets himself into a lot of he gets himself into a pretty bad trouble that has him end up in prison. And now with after his high success, his fall, he has nothing left from this new life, that he has to go back home to the island town with his tail between his legs. The guy who, if he ever ended up in this place, you knew his life had really taken a terrible turn, kind of having to move back, moving back in with his parents, a failure and a former prison inmate. And what he goes through in this as he's trying to reestablish himself in the community that he turned his back on. And you also have Erin Green, played by Kate Siegel, a veteran of Mike Flanagan stuff. Kate Siegel and was it Victoria Pedretti, who is also in Bly Manor and Hill House, who has been on the show You on Netflix. These two women are two of the best actresses that I've seen come out of nowhere, seemingly, to me. Kate and they're both just, I can't, every time they're on screen, I am just transfixed by not just their performances, but man, they're just so beautiful. I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't focus on that, but boy, are they like beautiful. Sorry. I have to be honest, they're also fantastic actresses on top of everything else. Who is dealing with she's out of an abusive marriage and she's pregnant with that person's child and reconnecting with Riley, who they were close when they were younger, and they're having kind of this burgeoning relationship is starting to happen here. Meanwhile, you've got this other cast of characters that are all straight out of like a Stephen King type story. You've got the woman named Bev, who also is giving an award-worthy performance, played by Samantha Sloyan. Bev Keane is one of the great, villains in a while. She reminds me of Mother Carmody from The Mist, played by Marcia Gay Harden back then. This acting job, she is up there with Queen Cersei as people that you love to hate, and just hate. You're like, it's a tribute, it's a testament to the performance that this woman is giving, that I have not been so enraged with the character in a while. And it's all up to all her acting. You've also got Rahul Kohli, who's from iZombie, as the sheriff, who's a Muslim and is basically there because he's just trying to get away from other society that doesn't accept him because of his religion. You've got Annabeth Gish as the town doctor, Dr. Sarah Gunning, who is taking care of her invalid mother, and what she goes through in this. Everybody is just, I could just like sit here and gush more and more about the cast. Like the return of Henry Thomas is another staple of Mike Flanagan stuff. Robert Longstreet as Joe Colley, the town drunk. All these characters could just be cliche stock people in another kind of throwaway movie or show, and because it feels like a long movie. Another testament to it. All these people, if not handled right, could just be throwaway. I've seen this a million times, and you have seen it a million times. Except the writing is so spectacular, the dialogue is so spectacular, the actors are giving it 1,000,000%. So all these kind of things are elevated to this show goes to 11. on everything, whether it's cinematography, writing, acting, directing. Everything in this is top freaking notch. Now, like I've said, this is a lot of dialogue. This is not an action horror piece where you're just getting to scares and everything. This show builds off of character and you get to the heart of each of these people for the most part. The horror is very subtle. They don't explain a lot, which I love, but there's some stuff that just really works. When it gets scares, it's scary. It is like that kind of earned jump scare, if they even, like if you want to call some of them, like they're scares. You can call them jump scares if you want, but when something happens in this, I was genuinely like I did what I sometimes do where I try to not look when I know something's about to happen. And I still found myself very, very, like, scared at times. But again, the supernatural stuff, all of it, it just accentuates the problems that these people have. And as it slowly escalates to, if you've watched the R11 video, this show discusses like group thinking and how dangerous, like cultish behavior, people that allow something to take over their lives to the point of extremism and doing terrible and horrible things to each other. I, again, don't want to say too much, but it's also not, it also goes after religion, but it's not a complete indictment of religion. It talks about a lot of how people will justify themselves through Bibles, through a religion, through biblical scripture, manipulating things, justifying what they do and stuff. And coming again from this background that I have, where I was, raised in the Jehovah's Witness cult, seeing that kind of fervor that can take hold, and the way that you can just justify how you treat people in the sake of your religious beliefs. It hits home. It got really real for me at many parts in this. It made me very uncomfortable, but in the best possible way, where I knew I was getting something that was honest and true, and not being completely throwing religion under the bus either. Because I'm very anti-religion, but I still found that there was value in what they were saying sometimes. Because even if I have those thoughts about religion, I also understand why people gravitate towards it and why they need it, and how it can be something, helpful in some people's lives. We also see in this, like, how when taken wrong and done for the wrong reasons, how this can be really bad for people. And even sometimes you can see in this where some of this is done with the best of intentions, and how that can go horribly wrong. And again, like I'm really trying not to spoil anything to this, but if you're really serious about story and character in your shows, and even if you want to see, if you're looking for something that's going to be like a Blumhouse movie or any other, like, scary show movie, this is not that. Everything in this is earned. The scares are earned. The character beats are earned. Everything in this, by the end, is just this, like, gut punch that will leave you floored. But it's very heavy, and it's very weighty, and it does bring up a lot of stuff. And whether or not you can handle that is up to each person. Me, I loved it. And it's going to be something that I go back to occasionally throughout the rest of my life, because I think every once in a while you need that kind of cold, water thrown in your face to wake you up to some things, because it helped me think about things, about how I treat people sometimes, and how I think about things. And And is some of the things that I think and say to people really the best way to go about certain things? And it just really nails it. And again, I just can't say enough good things about the acting in this and the dialogue. This gives you the best character work I've seen on a television show, at least, since, like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. So, anyway, highest recommendation, but I do have to briefly talk about the end of this. So if you have not seen Midnight Mass, click off now, because we do have to talk about the one thing that was a little bit off for me, and that was the very, very, near the very end. Okay, so full spoilers for the end of this, and we're not even going to fully get into it, but I want to talk about how it all plays out a little. So here we go. So you get all the way to episode 7, the final beat. Everything has come crashing down. By the end of this, there's going to be a resolution, hopefully, that you find satisfying. What I found, though, was that it was a little bit of a mixed bag and a rush to the end. When it was really working, it was so good and powerful, and again, like a punch in the face. But there were other parts in this that just felt, I don't know, really kind of rushed. And I was a little disappointed in that. But it does have one of the best last lines, most fitting last lines in all of I've heard in like a really long time. Because the last line explains to you without having to show you how fully resolved the situation is. And if you don't know what it means, it literally has to do with the very first miracle that happens in this town. And when you hear those two words, that last line, you understand, oh, without having to do some major, have a couple of other scenes that show the audience what happened. It trusts that you understand that. That's another thing that this show does, is it trusts that you are smart enough to understand the subtleties of what is happening here. Just like what's really happening in this show, supernatural-wise, they don't tell you what it is. They allow you to go, oh, that's what's happening. And they don't have to spell it out for you. Nobody's running around going, oh, it's this. Because everybody is so caught up in what they're doing, nobody's really talking about it. But they know, everybody knows, but nobody's saying it. And I also think that that's an interesting choice for the people to hide their delusion and justify what they're doing, even though I think they know exactly what this really is. Like I said, I think that there's the thing that happens to the doctor. While I think that it was fitting that her father and her mother are now about the same age as her in the story, when she dies and she'd been taking care of the mother, and it just felt wrong. I see what they were getting at, but I really honestly, it felt like that death was, if they were going to kill her off, I understand the metaphor. It just felt a little heavy-handed that moment. Because, let's face it, this was going to have a downbeat ending no matter what. But I just felt like the ending, it felt a little hit and miss for me. And even as impactful as it was, I had to mention that. Best scene, one of the best scenes, written scenes that I've ever seen in a show is the conversation about what do you think happens when you die, and they just talk specifically, what do I think happens when I die, and how Erin talks about what happens she starts to talk about what happens to her when she dies and decides to talk about what happened to her unborn child when she died, and at the end, hearing her revisit that conversation with Riley, to talk about then how she thinks she dies. That is some of the best written dialogue I've ever seen. Just two characters talking to each other. It is like the key moment in the middle of the series too that really drives home what's really happening and what they're really talking about on this show. And again, if you've made it this far, you watch this, you know what I'm talking about. I loved it. I hope you guys give it a chance to watch it too. So if you liked what I was talking about here, don't forget to hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe, hit the bell for all notifications. We'll be back with more stuff, more present stuff with Wheel of Time. We've got Wheel of Time and Cowboy Bebop and everything else. But have a good day, everybody, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.